Stephen Maxwell. Stephen was raised in Grant, a small community in Allen Parish. He joined KLB in late 2015 as an anchor and multimedia journalist, and I'm sure you see him on TV quite a bit. Stephen's passion includes news, politics, and the Dallas Cowboys. Do we forgive him? But anyway, we welcome him. We appreciate his help this evening, and I'm going to turn the program over to him.
Thank you, Ms. Siles. I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight and thank all the contestants, or candidates, I should say, tonight. I don't think we have a competition. I'm going to introduce our panel tonight. We have Mr. Richard Sharkey with the Town Talk. He's been at the Town Talk longer than I've been alive, probably. We have Miss Camille Moran, too. She's a lifelong native of Natchitoches. Camille is a freelance certified paralegal and owner of Caramore Industries. She manages 220 acres of timberland as well as a 4-season plantation, a Christmas tree, produce and floral bedding plants farm, pecan orchard, blueberry patch. Camille is a member of many organizations, to say the least. So, all right, thank you for being here. So how this is going to work, each candidate's going to get a 6-minute intro, and then we're going to ask them the 4 same questions dealing with national issues. So first off, we have Mr. Vera Billiot. So, gotta give him this microphone. And then after these 6-minute intros, we're gonna open it up to the panel, and I know some of you have already given out questions that will be asked for them too. Mr. Billiot, first, tell us who you are.
My name is Beryl Billiot. I'm a lifetime resident of the state of Louisiana. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, a small business owner, a husband, a father, and I'm committed to securing a prosperous future for our families, not only my children, but their children's children. We must stand together and get rid of our small, petty differences to overcome the massive challenges we have in our country. You know, as your senator, I vow to fight for heightened national security by strengthening the military and securing our borders. We say this first because without a secure border and without a strong military, nothing else matters. Because we don't maintain the freedoms and integrities and the liberties that we have come to enjoy. You know, there's a lot of individuals infiltrating our borders that wish to destroy the American way of life. And I think we need to stand together and defend our nation as we were designed to do. As a Marine Corps veteran, I look out and I see all the challenges that we face within our communities and within our borders. And we must strengthen our military so we can defend our country properly. I look at it as there's 2 reasons people come to America. It's either 1, to enjoy the liberty and the prosperity and the freedom that we have enjoyed all of our life, or 2, to infiltrate us and weaken us and to destroy our way of life. You know, I will also work tirelessly to improve our rapidly decaying education system. You know, our public education system.
Yep, I was going to ask you the 4 questions too, so make sure we get that in your time. So.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. First question, what is the most pressing issue facing Congress, and what do you see as the solution?
I think the most pressing issue facing Congress today is our crippling national debt. Without addressing the debt, we can't do anything. Our national security, our education, our health care, all the things that the government does is based on the amount of money that we have allocated to spend towards that effort. If we don't get our spending under control and truly prioritize our issues, we're never going to get to the goal. So we need to address that. We need to put the important things first and make sure we pay for the things that matter to each and every individual within the borders of the state of the country of America.
Now, what type of immigration reform do you favor, if any?
Immigration. Well, the question was about amnesty. I do not favor amnesty. I think immigration needs to be looked at because 524 years ago when Christopher Columbus landed on the shores of the New World, immigration started. I'm a Native American, and my ancestors dealt with immigration long before. And the Europeans came in and wiped out a whole nation of people. We're facing the same thing again today. We need to make sure that the people coming into our country is vetted, that they want to share the American way of life and not destroy it.
Do you agree with building a wall on the southern border of the United States? Do you agree with building a wall on the southern border of the United States?
If resources allowed it, but we don't need a physical wall. What we need is a wall of order. That way when people cross it, we can enforce. We don't have a law problem in America or a border problem, we have an enforcement problem. We need to make sure that when people break the law, they suffer the consequences. When they violate our borders, they deal with the consequences of violating our borders. But we're already in a crippling amount of debt. Now, if we can get Mexico to pay for it, I'm all for it.
All right. So what do you think of the current U.S. involvement with the fight against ISIS?
You know, we as Americans, we don't see it every day, but it's getting close. ISIS is a growing threat to the world population. We as Americans must stand and fight. As a Marine Corps veteran, I'm not afraid to say that during the first desert war, and when we went out there, had we had a leader that allowed us to win, we wouldn't be here today.
Would you support ground troops?
I would support ground troops if we had a leader that allowed us to go with a plan to win the war and not get into another political correct debate or some type of confrontation. We need to go in with a plan to win.
Right. So which candidate do you support for president and why?
We've all seen the post, 319 million Americans, is this the best we can do? But of the two, I support Trump. And not because he is the number one, it's because he is better than the other option. And we have worked in the establishment for so long. We know what they have done to us. It's time to do something different. It's time to do something better. So if we've been so far to the left, I say let's go so far to the right so we might end up in the middle.
All right, you got a minute if you have anything else to say.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, we've all been involved in politics, whether you want it or not. I have never held an elected office, but as a small business owner and as a parent with children in public school, I know the fights and the struggles that we see every day. If we don't stand together, if we don't show up, if we don't do our diligent duty and vote for the people and not the party, we're going to end up in a bad situation. I ask that you think about the candidate that you're voting for, not the party of which they belong to. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not time to do something different. It is time to do something better. My name is Beryl Billiot. I'm number one on the ballot, and I hope I end up number one in your heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Billiot. All right, up next we have Thomas Clements. So first off, just introduce yourself to us.
Yes, I'm Thomas Clements. I'm from Lafayette, Louisiana. You're a Libertarian, United States Senate candidate. I wrote a little 1-minute opening here, just to kind of open it up here. I'm telling Congress no more lame duck sessions forever. I'm telling Congress what happened to national security. I'm telling Congress no more about basic math. I'm telling Congress no more about checking the balance. I'm telling Congress right now, the 2016 Moore vote is a Libertarian candidate named Thomas B. Clements, standing for standard individuals living free, a standing liberty and justice for all, a person born in the ghetto, a 48-year-old computer numeric controls programmer for 28 years, a small business owner for 7 years, a former 2014 United States Senate candidate, a former 2016 Libertarian presidential candidate, and currently applying for the job as your next United States Senator in Louisiana State. At number 5 on the ballot, Election Day.
All right, first off, tell us what's the most pressing issue for you in this race?
The most pressing issue, and I really thought about this hard today, the most pressing issue is people elected career politicians that like to argue. That's the most pressing issue I've seen going into Congress.
What type of immigration reform do you favor?
Well, the solution is to vote Libertarian first time for Thomas B. Clements, your next senator for people of Louisiana State.
So what type of immigration reform do you prefer?
I have a pretty good answer just for immigration reform, and I call it continent reform.
Can you explain that to us a little bit?
Well, continent reform would be a combination of a lot of things for our economy. For one, on the flat tax rate, to where we could join the American people, the Canadian people, the Mexican people, and let's have one continent.
Do you favor the southern border at all, or?
No.
Okay. So what do you think about the current U.S. involvement with ISIS?
The current U.S. involvement with ISIS. The national security is a Congress job to fulfill here and abroad that's necessary to protect and defend our country from foreign and domestic enemies. If the Commander-in-Chief asks for support of Congress, ground troops on sound evidence in the interest of national security, the answer is yes.
Do you support ground troops in the fight against ISIS?
If it's sound evidence for the interest of national security and the protection and defend our country, yes.
So being a libertarian, do you support Gary Johnson for president, or do you prefer anybody else?
A healthy Gary Johnson presidency, 2016, that's what I support. You can ask Gary to enact a continent reform that I'm suggesting for national security. He would stop the war on people about drugs, that health issue versus crime issue, put that to rest.
All right, you have a few minutes if you have anything else to say.
Yes, absolutely. As your senator, I would push that flag tag rate. A continent reform, a worldwide fair trade agreement, that's continent reform. The first libertarian United States Supreme Court judge that supports Second Amendment pro-life, that's a continent reform. Louisiana State worldwide news for electing the first ever libertarian United States Senator, Thomas B. Clements. That's going to be some continent news. Think bigger and bigger, folks. I'm telling Congress to get out of my individual American way of living. I've told Congress. People right now, get out and vote for libertarian the first time. And liberty and justice for all. I'm telling people, the 18, L, together, everyone achieves more liberty. New leadership for the people. Everybody clap, say it with me. Together, everyone achieves more liberty. Help me now. We the people are going to win that battle for the people. See, it's like this. I've been producing all my life, making products, living the American dream. The federal government took my American dream. Now I'm interviewing because I want this job as a senator. All the rest of the candidates can retire. I got this. Stand in liberty and justice for all, for the people. Everyone together, everyone achieves more liberty for the people. Thank you.
Libertarian Thomas Clements, thank you so much. All right, up next we have Donald Crawford. First off, just introduce yourself to us.
Hi, I'm Donald Crawdaddy Crawford. Thank you for inviting us all here tonight. I'm a businessman. I'm in the finance world. I value healthcare deals. Been doing that for 20 years. I've got a bachelor's in finance and an MBA from Tulane. But what motivated me to get into this race was friends and family losing jobs. I've had people work in the medical field who are highly skilled, and they're driving a truck. Absolutely nothing wrong with driving a truck, but the lack of jobs in every area in this country is terrible. And basically, the government has run the country into the ground over the past 20 years with terrible trade deals, outsourcing all kinds of products that we used to make here, basically employing the rest of the world instead of employing us, who buy all the products and goods and services. So that was my motivation for getting into the race. What I do on a daily basis in the healthcare field, in valuing things, I search for fair market value. What's a fair deal for a transaction between two parties? And the government's actions towards you all is completely unfair. The taxes are out of whack. People who have a low tax rate pay too much, and people like Warren Buffett don't pay enough. So there's no fairness anywhere in the government, and so my goal is to change that and make it fair for everyone.
So what is the most pressing issue in the nation? I guess that kind of answers it for you. Your motivation to get into the race?
Well, it's jobs. To me, since NAFTA happened, the entire middle class was wiped out. We had lots of manufacturing jobs, and look at what we have today in the country. You've got people who are in minimum wage jobs, and they're complaining, saying they want $15 an hour to work at McDonald's. And the reason they want that is they have no place to go. Before, you had lots of manufacturing, $15, $20, $25 an hour jobs. You could basically work your way out of McDonald's on up the job chain and make a decent living. But you can't do that anymore, and government has allowed that to happen. And basically the business donors who buy politicians and put them in office to support themselves so they can enrich themselves and basically put you out of work for their own benefit. So in jobs and immigration, you know, a lot of people come here, they want to work, but they're basically stealing our jobs. They're working under the table, working for less money. There's no fair competition. It's not fair that people come in illegally and steal Americans' jobs who want to work.
Do you support building a wall on the southern border?
I think in some areas of the border, there should be a wall. If we could build a wall effectively across the whole border, I would be for it. Why not? I mean, we've got doors in our homes. You know, they're there for a reason. We want to know who's coming and going, and you know, the way to check them all in is to make them all go through the same gate. And another thing too is it's actually terrible that there's no wall, because you have people dying out in the desert trying to get here. And it's really sad that they die trying to come across. They paid thousands of dollars, you know, just so the humanitarian piece of immigration. If you put the wall up, and when they hear that the wall's there, they'll make a different route to come in and not die. You know, the other thing about immigration too, if you look at what happened in France in the past year, people going into restaurants, shooting people up, blowing up nightclubs. France didn't control their immigration 50 or 60 years ago, and they're reaping what they sowed back then. And so we kind of have the same thing happening here. We can either cut it off while it's not bad now, or 50 or 60 years from now, people's kids and grandkids and great-grandkids are going to be paying the price.
On the topic of that, what do you think about the U.S.'s current involvement with ISIS?
You know, it doesn't seem like there's too much of a plan right now. We need a coalition of people. It can't always just be the U.S. spending all of our money trying to be the police force across the entire globe. You know, Saudi Arabia, they have tanks and planes, as do many other Middle Eastern countries. They have lots of money, lots of people. So if we want to get rid of ISIS, there has to be a collective world force that says it's time to get rid of them, and we're going to go there and do it together. We can't have ISIS only mad at us. They have to be mad at everybody, but really we need to all get together and wipe them out.
Do you support ground troops?
You know, if the president got the recommendation from the Department of Defense that ground troops were necessary, and there was lots of evidence, you know, much more so than when Bush went in to get Saddam and what Hillary did in Libya. There's got to be way more evidence than that. But yes, I would support that.
All right. Well, which candidate do you support for president, and why specifically?
I support Donald Trump. He hasn't been a politician. He started his campaign basically paying for it himself. I don't get the sense that he's in it for himself. He's 70 years old. You know, he could retire and have a leisurely life. But it sounds to me like his whole force is he wants a better life and a better future for all Americans, including his kids and grandkids. And so, you know, he's got the ability to do it because he's not collected, connected politically. He doesn't know anybody.
All right, you have 40 seconds if you'd like to spend it.
Okay. Well, if you go to my website, crawdaddy2016.com, you can read my whole platform. I've got just bullet points of everything that I'd like to accomplish, and it's all, you know, to benefit us as American citizens. We should be first. You know, that would be the goal of me as your next senator. You know, what could I do for Louisiana? So Louisiana first, and then secondarily, America first. We should put ourselves first. Once we're okay, then we have the ability to help take care of others. So thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Crawford. We're also going to have more direct, specific questions with the panelists. So we're just asking one of the same questions, opening up. Up next, we have Mr. Josh Pelton. Thank you for being here tonight. First off, tell us about yourself.
Well, Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for being here. First and foremost, I want to thank all of the candidates who did arrive tonight and present themselves. As you know, there are 24 folks in the race, and I do not believe that because of where you're at in the polls, if you're in the top 4 or you're in the bottom 4, you should be excluded, or you should feel that you don't have the need to come and show your face in front of the people of Louisiana. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for having everyone here. My name is Josh Pellerin. I'm a candidate for the United States Senate. I'm probably the most unique and diverse candidate in this race. As you all know, I am the lead Democratic contender. I come from a very diverse background. My father's African American, my mother's half Caucasian and half Indian. I'm an oil and gas executive based out of Lafayette, Louisiana. I've been in oil and gas since 2010, started my first business at 22 in 2006, and in the healthcare sector. And I want to be a true champion for Louisiana. You know, I believe that I can relate to everyone in this room, whether it be from a socioeconomic status, being from a business, your heritage. So from whatever walk of life you're from, I certainly can relate to you and can be very empathetic and compassionate to who we are as people and who we are as Louisianans, regardless of where we come from. So that's the first thing I like people to know. The second thing is that I've worked very effectively and efficiently from the private sector in Washington, D.C. to bring back true value-added results for Louisiana. As you know, about 6 months ago, the 40-year oil embargo was lifted, which allows the United States to be able to export oil to other countries. I was very involved and instrumental in getting President Obama not to veto it. I met with him on more than one occasion to have the conversation as a subject matter expert from industry, and was able to persuade him not to veto the bill. And the latent effect of that is that we will have more jobs being created here in Louisiana once we can get the price of oil and gas up to start to stimulate the economy. Now, I'm not a big oil man. My oil business is related primarily on the treatment of produced water, so it's more in the environmental component. We created new and innovative technologies which allow for the efficient separation of water from oil. So I'm more on the environmental side. And I think that separates me. People tend to have, I guess, the assumption that I'm a big oil and gas executive. I am more of an environmental guy who understands the oil and gas industry, who can keep a good balance and work as a liaison between the big oil and gas companies as well as the federal government. That's what I've been very effective and efficient at being able to do.
Mr. Pellerin, we have a few questions too. What is the most pressing issue for you in the nation?
Well, right now, as a nation, the pressing issue is our economy. I mean, right now we have people who are losing jobs at a rapid rate. The unemployment rate is higher than what it's ever been in Louisiana in quite some time. And a lot of it is related to oil and gas, but I think we need to do things to be proactive to ensure that we have a diversified industries across the board here in Louisiana, not just oil and gas and then the seafood and the farming. So I think we need to look at what we can do as a state to bring new types of businesses, whether it be technology, whether it be infrastructure to help support our universities, to have joint ventures between corporations and the universities, not just LSU. I think LSU, they have a good football team, but they're not the only university in the state. So we need to look at the other universities that we can work with. We need to encourage private sector industries to come into our state and work with them in that capacity.
What type of immigration reform do you prefer, if any?
Well, I think we need to have a systematic system in place. You know, this country was founded on we all immigrated, our ancestors immigrated here at some point in time. As I mentioned in the beginning, my mother, I think like Mr. Fiat, is half Native American, and so they were the Native Americans. Everyone else are immigrants. But we just can't leave our borders open and let whoever wants to come into America walk in, especially in this day and time with the risks that we're exposed to from terrorists from various different countries and nations. So I think we need to secure our borders. We need to have a very stringent process that does not allow for terrorists, folks who are not aligned with America and what our core values are, and why our ancestors came here to experience life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think that's what we need to make sure.
Do you support deporting illegal aliens? Do you support deporting illegal aliens?
Look, I believe there's 11 million people who are here. They're here. And if you look at the disruptiveness of a family and the cost to send those folks back to their native country, I don't think they should be here, number one. But number two, I think we need to look at who's at fault. It's not them. It's us. It's our policy. And so we should allow those folks to stay. And I think they should be granted immunity, so to speak.
All right. Well, what do you think of the U.S. involvement in the fight against ISIS?
Well, I mean, ISIS, that's a pretty simple question. We need to eliminate and exterminate ISIS, point blank.
All right. Do you support ground troops at all?
If necessary or required, yes. If that's the action we need to have a definitive resolution, then absolutely.
All right. Last question for you. Which candidate do you support for president?
I support Hillary Clinton. Look, I come from a diverse background, and I see some that drink the Kool-Aid of Trump, but the guy he comes from a background of being in business and being very aggressive. He has a horrible track record in his business dealings, and he's not right for all the people of America. He might be good for the 1%, okay, but he's not good for everybody. And I think Hillary Clinton certainly has some things that I don't approve of as an American citizen, but when I look across the board, when we look at women's rights, equality for pay, when we look at diversification and making sure that we have a very diverse workforce and that women have the same opportunities as men, we need to have a $15 an hour minimum wage. These are all things that are very important to me that I support Hillary Clinton on. I think that we should also provide 2 years of free college or technical training at a trade school. You know, we need to have a path of social progression and not a path of social regression, because right now the people of Louisiana have been with Bobby Jindal and that administration the past 8 years. We have been on a path of social suppression and regression, and it's time to take a new direction.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Pellerin. Up next, we have a Libertarian, Leroy Gilla. First off, just tell about yourself. First off, tell us about yourself a little bit.
I am Dr. Leroy Gilla. I'm president of Southeastern Christian Association. I am Dr. Leroy Gilla. I'm president of Southeastern Christian Association. We have abused women. We give them new identities. We give them a new beginning. We get innocent people out of prison. We also help people that are victims of gang violence. My goal today is to expand that even further. I'm also retired from Wall Street. I was once a counselor. I was also military. But the most important thing, I'm a father, 15-year-old, 13-year-old, 15-year-old go to college at night, regular school during the day, because I'm big on education. My 13-year-old will skip 2 grades this year. He's in the seminary at night. I'm extremely big on education.
All right, first off, just tell us what's the most pressing issue for you in the nation right now?
The most pressing issue is these men and women who are running for office, standing up telling you all that if you vote for them, they're going to do this for you, and they're going to do that for you. They're going to do nothing. They're not going to even accept lobbyist money. That's a travesty. You see, first of all, they can't do nothing in Washington unless they get a senior senator to work with them. And if they don't have nothing to offer them, then you can't give them nothing to help with. No, we have a problem when we elect people who can't be honest with us. We have a problem when we have a senator who go to Washington, stay in that seat for 20 years and do nothing for you. That's our problem. That's the most pressing issue that I see that we have. The next pressing issue is that we're African Americans. We were brought into this country not by choice, and we can't even vote unless Congress give us permission to vote. It is time that we come together as a nation, stand up and fight together like we did in World War I, World War II, fight together like we did in Vietnam. Yes, ISIS is going to make a believer out of us, and we have to unite.
What type of immigration reform do you prefer, if any?
Well, immigration needs fixing drastically. They're talking about putting a wall up there, and that's going to break the American people. They're talking about putting more people on the border, which use what you have. Start patrolling better. Work harder to keep the illegals from coming over. But the most important thing that we have to realize, once the Hispanics or any other race come into the United States and they start having children born in this country, we cannot send them children back to that country. So what's going to happen? The parents are going to have to stay and take care of them, or we're going to end up putting them in the system. So I say, instead of trying to put them out the country like Donald Trump wants to, work something out to keep the illegals out, the cartels out, and make those that's here now citizens.
What do you think about the current involvement in the fight against ISIS? What would you propose?
Well, everybody was talking about ground troops. Let me tell you something. Fighting ISIS on the ground only is not the answer. If I had to give the order today to take ISIS down, it would be both air and ground. More air than ground, because we would have to fight ISIS on their own grounds. They know every crook, turn, hole, corner to go into. So I'm for air and ground, not ground only.
You have 1 minute. Tell us who you would support for president.
Well, asking me who I'm going to vote for president, that's kind of not, I don't want to say that, but I will tell you this much. Donald Trump is a dangerous man. He's going to have us in a world war, and more children are going to die. Hillary Clinton, on the other hand, she has her own problems, which she's going to make drastic mistakes as well. Gary Johnson, which I am a libertarian, he has his own problems. But who I'm going to vote for, ladies and gentlemen, don't you take me wrong. I would love to tell you who I'm going to vote for, but I don't want to influence your thinking for who to vote for. But it's definitely not Trump.
Mr. Gillum, thank you so much. Up next, we have Peter Williams. First off, just tell us about yourself.
Good evening, everyone. Reverend Peter Williams from Lettsworth, Louisiana. Some of you may have recognized me. I had the privilege of coming before the group before. I ran for Congress in 2013, and I also ran for Congress in 2014. And you might ask why you ran for Congress. Well, it was a prerequisite to this particular race. Name recognition, getting in the room and understanding the problems and the situations. And you know what's so ironic? I'm hearing the same song over and over again, and nothing has changed. Married to my wife 35 years. We have 4 children together, raised in rural parishes. Went to public school by choice. The Lord has been good to us. All 4 of them went to college. 3 of them have graduated. Baby girl left, and she better finish. But the most pressing thing, I'm the reality candidate. Tonight I'm going to talk to you like the mailman. The mailman delivered a mail and he couldn't care less whether you open it or not. Tonight I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to put it before you. And I'm going to let it sink into your brain and your heart and your mind and your spirit, because we have some serious times in Louisiana and this nation. The most pressing thing in the world today is division. in Washington, division and disrespect for the presidential seat. Since 2008, the President of the United States, President Barack Obama, has been the most disrespected president in the United States. 2012, he was reelected by the majority of the people. And we still have parties, 1, 2, 3. Nobody want to talk about the real issues that's pressing us. Another thing is pressing us. The fear of God have left Washington, D.C. The obedience and the trust in the Constitution that our forefathers had put before us as a guide is being used as a semi-book. Everybody want to amend it. Why don't we just do the policies that's in place? And the solution to that is two things that I'm not afraid of and I'm not ashamed of. One is the gospel of Christ, and two, being a black man in America. Reason I put it that way, because the rubber meet the road tonight. You have a decision to make in 50 days. You have to send someone to Washington that's going to be fair, be balanced, but be real. As far as, I'm ready.
Immigration,
As far as immigration, I'm going to roll it out for you.
Okay, go for
As
it.
far as immigration, there should be a reform. But let me ask you a question. How can you reform something if it's not working? You have to start from scratch. But a plan that I would have, they say they're undocumented, well, how we know we have 11 million? They're documented in Rapides. Go to Woodville, go to the nurseries, look at the landscape. They're working somewhere. The plan I would have is that I would have a voluntary identification plan. But first of all, you have to have a truth and a trust with the United States government saying that I would not deport you once you turn yourself in and let us know where you are. What this does is have a census for all undocumented immigrants. They're here anyway. You have to be humane in this. You're talking about mothers and children and women and elderly that came here and made a living, work for some of you, work for some of us, work for everybody. So the plan would be one, to identify them, two, not to deport them, three, not to build a wall. Listen to what we're saying. Build a wall. You ever heard of ladders? You ever heard of tunnels? The immigration movement and coming to America is not because they want to come for the American dream. It's a camouflage for the drug cartel. They are human mules. There are human trafficking being going on. It's more bigger than just coming here. So until we get real with the real problem, that's where it's at. Deportation is out. I would support helping them get identified. But the key is, once they get identified, and we find that they have committed a crime, then they have to have just penalties. ISIS,
You're ready to go? Yeah, you know everything.
I'm going to the Senate. How can I do a filibuster if I don't?
That's right. You have a minute.
ISIS is a threat. ISIS didn't just start overnight. ISIS started in 1492 when Christopher Columbus came. The techniques that they're using have been used by the fellow and his friends, the KKK, for a long time. So all they're doing is mimicking. And I beg the difference to ask this question. If the Bible says we reap what we sow, how we know the struggles that America is going through now is not from the transgressions of our forefathers years and years ago. Think about it. Ground troops. If the president and if all the security advisors say that we need ground troops, I would support it. Once again, like Mr. Billiot, give me a plan, give me a time in and a time out, and then that's what we make a decision on.
20 seconds. Tell us who you support for
20
president.
seconds. I'm making history with Hillary. Why I'm saying that? A black has never ran for U.S. Senate in Louisiana since 1877, PBS Pinchback. He won the election as a Republican, but they didn't let him take the seat because he had to wait 9 years after slavery to be declared a human being. Come 2017, I'm going to take his seat for him and let him know 200 years later, Peter Williams, number 24, fulfilled his mission. God bless you and thank you.
Mr. Williams, thank you. Up next, we have Republican Colonel Rob Davis. First off, tell us about yourself. I know this is your first rodeo running for U.S. Senate.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for being here. And I would also like to thank my fellow candidates for having the courage to show up, put their ideas in front of you, and ask you for your vote. And make no bones about it. Retired Air Force Colonel Rob Maness is here to ask you for your vote for our country and our state. Because I'm not going to bring you a message of doom and gloom tonight. But I am going to tell you the truth. This country, the United States of America, has lifted more people out of poverty, saved more people from tyranny and oppression than any other nation in the history of man. And we must continue it. I don't believe in the labels that are used in politics. Labels like Democrat, Republican, liberal, progressive, conservative, Tea Party. I'm here before you tonight as an American who happens to be a Republican. And I'm a dad, a granddad, a brother, a son, and a Christian. And I believe in simple things. The simple things that are represented by the documents in my pocket here that I've carried with me all of my military career, the Constitution of the United States and the Declaration of Independence. Limited government, individual responsibility, financial accountability in our government, and equality of opportunity for every single person that is an American citizen. That's what I believe in. That's what's documented in our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence. And I also believe in our first right. The first right in the Declaration of Independence that the Creator gave us and endowed all of us with is the right to life, and human life begins at conception when the third strand of DNA is created from its mom and daddy, and we must protect that unborn life as if it's an American citizen too, and that's our duty as Americans.
Right.
And ladies and gentlemen, I am going to tell you the truth. Our country's weaker than it's ever been in my lifetime. We're not leading in the world, and the world's on fire. And if you don't believe me, just look what happened over the last 48 hours when the Islamic State attacked this country once again. And it's attempted to be ignored by our elected leaders.
Now, what is
Our rights are under attack, and we must fight for those rights. Our culture is under attack, and we must protect that culture. And we must get our economy growing again. This economy can grow at 4% GDP per year, not the dismal 1.5% to less than 1% that this president has done for 8 years. And that's what the answer to poverty is jobs and a growing economy. I'm ready to take your questions.
Thank you. We have 3 minutes. What is the most pressing issue in the nation?
The most pressing issue for this country, ladies and gentlemen, is the war against Western civilization that the Islamists in this world are fighting. And it's a threat to the Western civilization's existence and to the existence of the United States of America. Now, I only served in combat and in peace and war as an enlisted man up through the rank of colonel for 32.5 years. So I might just have an idea of what I'm talking about. But there's 3 things we've got to do to solve that issue. And it's a multi-pronged war. They're making war against our economy. They're making war against us physically from a security perspective. And they're making war against our culture and our law. So we've got to grow our economy. We've got to do things like balance our budget, which is why I'm for a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. I support the penny plan. You can cut 1% off of every federal dollar spent for 7 years and balance the budget in 7 years. I support not reforming the U.S. tax code, but blowing it up and destroying it, so the Internal Revenue Service can never be used against a citizen of the United States that's a political opponent of a president from, I don't care what party they're from, ever again. And that's why I support the fair tax system. The fair tax eliminates the personal income tax and eliminates the corporate income tax and does this. It frees up trillions of dollars of capital trapped overseas to be brought home to recreate those companies and manufacturing jobs that are leaving, like Ford going to Mexico, Cadillac division going to China. We've got to cut regulation. We've got to return the power to make laws back to the Congress and away from the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy passed over 3,000 laws last year, and Congress only passed about 115. That's unacceptable. The power belongs in Congress, and I will fight to do that. And we've got to cut whole parts of the government in order to grow this economy. The first one is the Federal Department of Education, and we can go down a whole list, but I'll just stick with that one because it's brought us Common Core. It's not done anything to make the outcomes of high school graduation rates better. And Common Core was brought to Louisiana by the donors that are giving money to the leading candidate in this race, Common Core John Kennedy. And you people should not forget that. Common Core Kennedy wants to keep Common Core in this state because his donors brought it here. We've got to eliminate that Federal Department of Education and push that money back to the local school boards where you, the parents,
We have to
are
get to
paying
these,
those taxes to get that.
we have to get to these questions real quick. Very little time. What do you think about immigration? Do you prefer, do you reform, if any?
Let me give you a number. There are about 60,000 illegal aliens. Don't call them illegal immigrants, ladies and gentlemen. Call them illegal aliens. That's the legal terminology, and that's what they are. They've broken our laws. We have 60,000 illegal aliens in this state. $223 million comes out of your tax dollars to take care of them. $132 million of that $223 million goes to education. Education dollars taken away from my children and your grandchildren. They only pay about $11 million in taxes every year. So all the rest of that $210 million comes out of our pockets. We've got to do three things. Secure our borders. Yes, I support building a wall, but I'm the only candidate in this race that's actually secured a border. I commanded the 6th largest Air Force base in the world in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I had 53,000 acres of mountainous and desert terrain, largely unfenced, that I kept secure with a force of 650 men and women. We should build that wall. We should use every available bit of technology so we can see the tunnels being built before they're built. So we can see the ladders when they're being moved in position. Because we have the capability to do that, and I know what it is, and I know what policies to do.
Mr. Manus, we're out of time, so thank you
We've
so
got
much.
to enforce our current laws. If we don't enforce our current laws, then we are no longer a nation of laws. Our law matters. Our law matters. If we enforce our current laws, Pew polling shows that we don't have to deport 11 million people. They'll go home at a rate of 1.2 million people a year, and President Obama has sent 800,000 a year home himself. So stop the crap with the deportation.
We're out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Up next, we have Mr. Gregory Taylor. Tell us about yourself.
Hello. I'm unemployed. I'm the only one up here under 30. I used to work at a neighborhood as a janitor. I was a caregiver for my mom. So I understand the situation with healthcare very well. Also nearly died from having a seizure a few years ago. And I had to bury my brother 4 years ago who had a seizure as well. So when majority of the people, I'm going to tell you right now, all of them have lied to you so far. Immigration is not a problem. ISIS, the only thing ISIS do is use our military as propaganda to recruit people. You take the military out the way, ISIS, who do ISIS have to fight? The Sunni and Shiite hate each other. Let them fight each other. The biggest problem dealing with not only the United States but the world is global warming and climate change. In the United States, if we deal with climate change, it will create over 60 million jobs. About 200 million for Louisiana. You want to create more jobs in the long run? This is short. Dealing with climate change is something we can do right now in the next 5 years. If you want to create jobs in the long run, we need a comprehensive education system. We need to have no 2-year plan. Every person in the United States, if you're here, born or immigrant, you get an education 4 years, 8 years. All that we need you to do, get an education, become a productive member to society. Prisons, our prison system, worst in the world. We have 25% of the prison population of the world. We only have 5% of the population in the total population. That's ridiculous. We need to end the war on drugs, which really started in the late 1800s. We need to end the war on drugs, legalize, tax, regulate drugs and prostitution. You do that, it will free up to $40 billion we spend every year on, well, really $50 billion when you add in prostitution. But it will also create another $100 billion in taxes and revenue. You can take that and you can improve our education system. You can take that, you can improve our streets, our roads, our highways. You put, and then we can take that money and also put solar panels and wind turbines all up and down the highway to create energy. You can put solar panels and wind turbines on your house. You put down your house, you produce enough energy. Mine. Also in the next, say 50 years, 40%, 50% of the job we have now will be done by robots.
Mr. Taylor, what's the most pressing issue for you in the nation?
Climate change.
Why is that?
Because when you deal with that issue, when you deal with how the oil and gas company has destroyed coastline to cause these major floods in there where nothing is able to be absorbed by trees and the coastline and all the plants, you see the results. You put, again, solar panels and wind turbines on your house, tax credit to do that. You do that and you create a system where even if you're out of work, you're still producing, you're making money off with your house. And again, 40 and 50 years, about 40% of the jobs are going to be done by robots. How are those people going to live? Well, their house is producing more money than they energy than they use now. The energy, the taxes, they will be able to pay those people for the energy they're producing. And you do that, you see the results of how it will help people to not need to be on federal assistance if their house is producing energy and making money. I mean, think about this. You go on a month vacation, your house is still running, having creating energy for you. You turn off, go to your circuit breaker, flip the switches that you don't need on. You leave, you come back a month later, you have a $5,000 check in the mail from energy. That doesn't sound bad. Because your house is producing money for you.
So we have a minute left. Briefly, you already talked about ISIS, you talked about immigration. Tell us what you think about who you support for president.
Bernie Sanders, but since he's not in the race, Jill Stein. There's 4 people running. There's not 2, like somebody said earlier. Jill Stein, the only one that actually want to create a tuition-free education system where you can go to college no matter what you are, no matter who you are, you get the same treatment as everybody else when you go to college. You get an education, you create jobs, you can be more productive to society and help people. As far as ISIS, I don't support ground truth. I support humanitarian aid and surveillance to help their truth, to help the people of their truth, not ours. I don't want us spending most of the money for their war. That's a waste of tax dollars. Also, on the border, it will cost, I did the calculation, it costs about $33 to $50 billion for border patrol and the wall each year. We can take that money, we can take the border wall down, give them now pathway to citizenship, give the people who are here citizenship, no passport. Give them citizenship and give everybody that come after them a pathway to citizenship.
Mr. Taylor, that's all the time. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Up next, lastly, we have Charles Marsala. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you for having us here, and thanks to all the candidates who came out tonight. So, my family moved to Monroe, Louisiana about 100 years ago after settling in New Orleans. If you've ever been to Gino's Italian restaurant, that's my grandfather. And my other grandfather, Charles Marsala, Sr., was very active with the Progressive Men's Club. So I think there was one down here in Alexandria back in the 50s and 60s. He was in Shreveport, Monroe, LA, and a few other towns. That was a big Labor Day event. My dad sold paper, And then they moved to New Orleans right before I was born. I think my cousin Robert Marsala pitched for Louisiana College about, say, 7, 8 years ago. So I have a little connection here to Alexandria and Pineville. It's a great town. Good to be back. And I think my grandpa Gino actually helped found the Knights of Columbus here in the 30s. So love of the area. I grew up in Metairie. I went to Jesuit in Tulane. I went out to California after Tulane became an oil driller. And I switched to designing military bases. I had everything west of the Rockies. That was for mobility and logistics and how they repaired the planes or the ships or the Army tanks or whatever it was. My territory included Boeing, everything there as far as how to move stuff if we ever deployed to war and how to repair it. Take a lot of interest in the people that did it. I switched and built an e-commerce company in Silicon Valley right after Google got going and used the technology I had there around Stanford University to put 20,000 products on the internet. And then I became mayor of a town that was just north of Stanford University called Atherton, California. I worked with Governor Schwarzenegger, and I was on his bipartisan leadership team to refine the finance issues in the state. I received an award from the state for that, a Leadership in Action Award for what I did. Came back a couple of years ago, and I started a TV show. I love Beach of Omaha, Wild Kingdom, and Jacques Cousteau. So we started making documentaries about what was going on with big animals. We ended up at the coast. When we were down at the coast, we realized there's a lot of problems down there. There's a lot of things I can't believe that haven't changed since I left back in the 80s. So I started doing a documentary on what's going on with the coast, and how much chemicals are in our waterways, the cancer that's in the Mississippi River. My family still is in Monroe, and there's a lot of flooding there. I think that has to be addressed. I know what's going on there because I dealt with it as mayor, that we have a lot of infrastructure that's not in place. Clean water and that, and I also want to deal with the jobs, relocating jobs from Asia back to here. We have a great college system in Louisiana, and we can bring those jobs that have been outsourced to Asia through those high-tech companies into the Louisiana market. Right now, we have, depending on the numbers, for which institute you get, 28 billion, 75 billion in unfunded pension liabilities in Louisiana. And that was something we dealt with in California almost a decade ago. I'm kind of very concerned, and actually some institutes have said that, but they're very concerned about Louisiana. My godfather lives in Shreveport. He's in the healthcare system of Louisiana. He's an employee. Other family members are. We've got to address the unfunded pension liabilities because that is a serious concern. I have a YouTube channel called, with all these videos which explain these issues in detail called Marsala for LA. And if you want to remember me, Huey Long used to say you wanted a chicken at every pot. For me, it would be a chicken Marsala in every pan.
All right, let's get these questions real quick. So what is the most important issue in the nation right now, pressing issue?
For me, the most, actually, not a simple guy, there's actually four. Finances, 38% of the country's unemployed. South Louisiana, the shrimpers are hurting. Oil and gas is hurting. We have so many industries that are hurting right now. We have to deal with the finances. We also have to deal with healthy water. That dead zone in the Gulf is over 6,400 square miles. It's the second largest in the world out of 500. We now have dead zones in Florida, California, Chesapeake Bay, Lake Erie, Oregon. The health that's going on in the country has got to be a concern. Safety. We dealt a lot with SWAT when I was mayor, and the things that we've just seen happen in Minnesota and in New York show that we have to prepare SWAT teams for better response. And something that's strange most people don't realize, because something just happened this week that brought attention to it. Last year, there were 244 people in Louisiana that were freed from slavery. This is a big issue. There are 20 million slaves in the worldwide today. And this big thing, human trafficking in the United States, in Louisiana, is something that we've got to deal with, and Congress has done very little to deal with that. Our shrimpers actually are competing against shrimping from slavery, coming out from Asia. I mean, this is a thing that's big in the United States, and something Congress needs to deal with.
Okay, we have to get to these questions real quick, just over a minute. What type of immigration reform do you prefer? Very quickly.
Really quick, we need to build a wall, I believe. We cannot deport 11 million people, but we have to have a policy where we do not reward people who have cut in front of the line. There are a lot of people I know from Italy that want to get in here and they can't.
All right, so what do you think about the current U.S. involvement in the fight against ISIS?
Okay, I sent a bill to Congress 2 years ago to defund ISIS in Africa. ISIS is in 24 countries. We can't just go bomb Iraq. There's $5 billion coming from Ivory-funded terrorism and Rhino Horn. And and I asked Congress to pass this. The 2 congressmen from Louisiana that are running here did not support it. It's in the Senate. I want to fight to get it through the Senate.
I've been wondering what that was doing there. Okay. So which candidate do you support for president?
All right. Right now, there's some issues in the Democratic Party which really concern me. They want a $10 barrel tax on oil. They want to tax inheritance, and you lose 35% of whatever you're trying to pass on to your kids. And they want to get rid of the 37.5% that's supposed to come to Louisiana to rebuild the coastal restoration. And based on that, and knowing some of the other players from being in the Republican Party for a while, there's some really good people. I'm going to vote Republican.
Okay, Donald Trump. Thank you so much, Mr. Marsala. All right, let's give more round of applause to all the candidates. Now we're going to open it up to the panel. So how this is going to work, you guys are going to have some questions. You have some questions from the audience too. 30 seconds each for each candidate to answer the question. So we're going to have to stay on time here. We have about 40 minutes. Hand it over to Mr. Sharkey over here.
I'd like to know where each candidate stands on the Affordable Care Act, whether you favor repeal, reform, or leave it pretty much as is. Start from the other end, please. If you would answer going back this way.
So on the Affordable Care Act, that's what you said. So for me, there was some things there, and I believe that it was something needed to be done. I used to play a lot of tennis. I had a tennis x-ray done. I couldn't get insurance because of a pre-existing condition. So in my opinion, there's a lot of good there. Keeping kids on there through school, if they want to go to grad school or 25 years old, is another good thing. From this point, it's sort of like you put a product out there that needs to be adjusted, but I do believe you need to take that from a bipartisan approach where you recognize that there was some good, it's done some solutions. At the same time, we know that it's costing a lot of money to a lot of small businesses and it needs to be fixed.
I support a single-payer healthcare system. The Affordable Care Act, combined with the VA, Medicare, and Medicaid, to be able to get every citizen in the United States health care. There's no middleman. You go to the doctor, your taxes pay for your health care. That's it. There's no, are you paying the CEO for the company? There's no, are you paying all of the shareholders? You just pay, you pay your taxes, you get health care, you go to the doctor. The veterans have a extra system with the VA. We improve the VA. We improve our health care. What I don't support is guesswork of health care. We can cut the health care costs in half if we go to a single payer system, if not more.
How much time do we have?
30 seconds.
Wow, that's a long 30 seconds. But thank you very much. I support it, completely eliminating Obamacare because it's crushing jobs in Louisiana. That is the single most dangerous thing that this president and the Democratic Party could have done to the United States of America. The latest study just came out yesterday from the General Accounting Office stating that it's destroying jobs in this country, and we cannot afford to destroy any more jobs in this country. Let's return to a free market system so we can buy insurance across state lines, so we can take care of those that have existing health conditions and continue to be free people instead of people working for the bureaucrats in the government of the United States of America. And I support Donald J. Trump. And I'm a proud Florida. That's who's going to win the presidency, and I'm going to go to the Senate to help him fight and win the war against ISIS. Thank you very much.
Can I get an amen? The Affordable Care Act, mockingly called Obamacare, this law, 2010. I heard it in 2011 repeal, I heard it in 2012 repeal, I heard it in 2013 repeal, I'm hearing it tonight. Another smoke and mirror to get folks. 385,000 families signed up for Affordable Care Act this year. 22,000 all field workers with pre-existing conditions signed up for Affordable Care Act. Louisiana is the poorest and sickest state in the nation. It's a travesty for anybody to want to repeal it or change it. But the only difference is those who have insurance, they have a decision to make whether to get a new Lexus or another yacht. But those who didn't have it, it's food or medicine. Think about it.
gentlemen, Affordable Care Act is the most important thing that any of us can have, both military and privately. Many of us are senior citizens. We get sick, we go to the hospital. Unfortunately, the Affordable Care Act that they have every so many weeks, you got to check out and go back in. If you go to the nursing home, you can only get so much of rehab, and they're putting you out. What is needed at this point is better health care. Everybody's whining and complaining about Obamacare, but where was you? Was you whining when they forced you to have car insurance? They didn't ask you to vote for it, but you accepted that, didn't you? The veterans, man, just what? The veterans have a bad hospital plan. You go to the VA thinking you're going to get the best of health care, and all you're going to get is butchered. The VA do not take care of us. I'm a veteran. They give us the worst health care that there is. I was in the hospital in Houston, VA, and I ended up dying on the table. I was dead for 25 minutes, and they did not tell my family. We do not have good health care in the United States, privately and veteran-wise. No matter what anyone may say, we need more insurance. We need better health care. We need cheaper prices. Every month you're spending more and more and more money for health care when in all actuality, what you need is just one solid, good plan.
We have to move on. Thank you. All right, Mr. Keller.
So we need to have reform of the current Obamacare plan. There's some things we need to do better. As a small business owner, we deal with it every day, and we had to make some adjustments. But it's something that we're going to work through. What I tell folks all the time, and I've went on the record saying this before, we hear Obamacare, Obamacare, Obamacare. Let's not forget it was a Republican Supreme Court justice who helped to get Obamacare passed. So I think it's important and necessary that we highlight who was involved, and we don't continue on an anti-Obama campaign. So this is about the people of Louisiana and the people of America. The first thing I like to say is that anyone who's got a college student who was a parent of a college student who is below the age 26 and currently still in the insurance plan, you ask anybody that question, they're quick to say, oh, that's a good idea. Ask a lot of Republicans that question. That's a good idea. Thanks to Obamacare, that's possible. So that's a good thing.
Mr. President, 30 seconds. We have to keep it wrapping, so.
That's fine. Thank you.
We'll be here all night, so.
Before Obamacare was created, there was a problem in the healthcare industry. If you left your job or were laid off, you could only keep your healthcare for so long, and then they kicked you off no matter what your problem was. You could have been in the hospital undergoing treatment, and they cut you off at a certain point. So Obamacare basically solved a tiny problem with a huge infrastructure of government, and anything the government does usually is going to waste a lot of money. So Obamacare just needs to be replaced. You can't take the hundreds of thousands of people who have insurance and just wipe them off the face of insurance. You have to have a way for them to transition on to something else and provide some ability for them to seek service in the private sector.
Thank you.
Obamacare, I believe that's the law of the land now. I don't know if this question is even edible anymore. I mean, can we actually repeal it? Sure we can. Is it going to happen? Probably not. That's what I kind of predict. That's what I see. If we could repeal it, absolutely. You know, we can get Congress to not argue and to agree on what we can fix in the Obamacare that needs to be fixed. And so yeah, can we repeal the whole thing and replace it? Yeah. Is it going to happen? Probably not. Not after this time. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, 30 seconds is not enough to answer this question, but to quickly do it, Obamacare should be repealed. We live in a free enterprise democratic society, And the only way to make insurance affordable is to increase competition within the market. We need to have a free market available so people have a choice in which to choose. A single-payer system does not work. There are countries using the single-payer system and they're going broke. Practices in Louisiana, all over the United States, are not being paid by the federal government through Obamacare, and they're getting forced to close their doors. We need a better choice. We don't have 30 seconds isn't enough to tell you, but I have a plan and it would work. And it's all about free enterprise and capitalism. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen. As you probably know, in Louisiana, women only make 68 cents on the average to every dollar that their male counterparts make. That is second lowest in the nation. Up until 2 weeks ago, that was lowest at 65 cents. My question to each of you is, do you support equal pay for equal work? And will you work in Congress to help pass the Paycheck Fairness Act and other legislation? Let's start with Mr. Clemens.
Yes, I do support the fair tax for women. I was speaking with my mother about that, and she says, well, yeah, of course. She goes, for an example, she had the same qualifications in a company that she worked for, and her and this other gentleman, and he got a lot more pay than she did. So she always told me how unfair that was, and I can certainly see where that is. And so, yes, do I support that? Absolutely. At corporate level positions, if there's the same qualifications, they should be able to have fair pay.
Thank you. You can give it to Mr. Billy or keep it that way? Keep it that way.
I worked for a company before, and I actually got paid less than my female counterpart. So, I'm not for another government law that's going to say everybody that does this specific job title is going to make the exact same amount of money. You all work in different industries, and you all output at different rates. Some of you work way harder than your other people at work. Don't you deserve more money? You're doing more work than the person sitting next to you. I mean, it's got to be based on something of your own productivity. It can't be the government just saying
30 seconds.
Everybody gets the same.
So I think my story is a bit different than everyone else up here. As I mentioned, I started my own business at 22. The priorities I had, one was to be fiscally responsible and have a profitable business, but to also make sure that at some point when I ran for the United States Senate, rather than say what I would do, what I have done. And so I'm very proud of what we've done at Pellerin Group. We have a very diverse workforce. Our women are compensated equivocally to our men in their current job descriptions. We have more diversity from a cultural standpoint.
30 seconds. Oh, yeah, sorry. You want to cut it off, Bernie?
No matter who it is, whether it's a man or a woman, equal work, equal pay. If she's doing the same as the man is, she should be paid equal. If she cannot be paid equal, then that company should do a lot of back paying. The women with my company get paid more than I do. I had one lady get paid $100,000 last year. Strictly commission. Both men, both women. We get paid by the case. The cases we win. We get paid by the cases that we push through.
30 seconds, Mr. Gillum.
That's the most important thing. Equal pay for both men and women.
I support equal pay for equal work. That 68% is a travesty. Since I'm the mailman, I'm gonna bring another piece of mail. For minority women, it's 52. So that's still a disparity, and that shouldn't be across the board. Thank you.
I believe we should enforce current law, which is a 1963 law that already guarantees equal pay for equal work regardless of gender. And we should fully do that. But here's the deal. That statistic that you brought up doesn't take into account the different choices that women make in their professional lives and the differences between them and men. So I disagree with the statistic, because I've been working for almost 40 years now, and I have never seen, not one time, that a woman was doing the job that I was doing wasn't paid the exact same thing. Now, if our qualifications were different, I have seen when I worked in Entergy that a director at the director level, a female who was more qualified than me, get a lot more money than me.
30 seconds.
So I support equal pay for everybody. Thank you very much.
Of course, yes, I support equal pay for equal work, but at the same time, I believe we need to have maternity and paternity leave for male and female. If you have a kid, this goes for same-sex couples as well. You have a kid, you raise a kid, you adopt a kid, you get time off to take care of that kid for up to a year. And as far as equal pay, yes, those statistics are wrong. Yes, Robert, right. There's some discrepancy, but job to job, women still in Louisiana still make about 76% to men. So we need to fix that system.
The Equal Rights was passed in 1963, and then in 1972 there was another act passed. This bill, I used to have a small business with a woman manager for Arizona and a man in Oregon. At one time he was making more, and then I got replaced him, and then she was making more than the new person. So there's a lot of intricacies with that bill, so the answer to that bill would be no. I have interviewed Dr. Maria Falco on my show. She was president of Loyola, making much less. It's enforcing the law that was written and not trying to impose new laws.